Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Friday Farsight. I'm your host Sheldon for Cody, and this week's topic is one that's near and dear to my heart: immortality. I'm getting to the age where I actually kind of look to the scientists, hopefully, for some breakthroughs that could maybe do something about this death thing that is coming for all of us. And so this was one of the questions I asked first once I built this website that predicts the future. And it was actually one of those that first made me think that there's actually some value to having AI predict the future. Before asking the question of the model, of the site, all I really had access to was what you see out in the world, in the media mostly. I don't dig into the scientific papers as much as maybe I should. But it seems like you either hear it's coming in 10 to 20 years, and you get this prediction from the scientists themselves who are working on something, and that's about the span of their career, and they're hoping to get to their breakthrough. Or from futurists who are maybe about my age, like Hans Moravec when he was making these predictions, who kind of hopes that this immortality will come along in their lifetime. Or you get the opposite, which is that it's bunk science, and people have been trying to create this forever, going back to the Fountain of Youth and whatever else. And there's this one kind of article you'll come across a lot where it covers a new breakthrough in longevity science, like a mouse living an extra 20% or something. But then it'll end with some discouraging quote, like a physician warning people not to spend too much money on supplements. So from the AI, by contrast, I got a nice article, and that's what we'll be hearing today in the podcast with Biff and Betty. That was kind of in between. It's sort of a balanced view of what science actually could achieve in the near term versus the long term, and when all this could come together. And so I got a date that we'll get to soon that was different than anything I'd seen anywhere else. And as AI is good at doing, I believe the article. It was very persuasive. I'll put my disclaimer here, since we do this every week. Remember that AI is not to be trusted completely, even though it may sound convincing. But what it seems to be great at is canvassing all the information that's out there and synthesizing it together. I feel like it saves me tons of time doing research, whether or not it's all fully accurate. It's almost like having a sixth sense for all the printed matter out there, which is, of course, what these models were trained on. Okay, there's one more thing to note before we get into the content, and that's that there's two predictions in the database about longevity. The first one, which we're going to look at today, is about preserving the body indefinitely. And the second one is about preserving the mind indefinitely. So there may be two problems to solve. And for an illustration of this, I think of the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson, which in the course of that many hundreds, maybe a couple thousand pages, I'm not sure, you see this group of characters age for 150, maybe 200 years, quite a while. And one of the personal problems that they all have at some point, even though they have some basic longevity tech that keeps their bodies alive, is their minds begin to, so much decay, but they lose their memories, or childhood is such a remote memory, they start to forget who they are. And maybe that is a second problem we need to solve. We may just lose the sense of who we are after a while because we have biological memories. So that's kind of a downer thought before jumping into this potential new technology that could keep us alive. Those of us who are trying to achieve longevity escape velocity, as they talk about it, may have a while to wait. But let's get in now to the physical aspect of it. And for that, we'll turn to Biff and Betty.
Thanks, Sheldon. What you got, Biff?
Wow, immortality, just like straight up living forever. That's what Strategic Farsight is cooking up for us this week, Betty, and it's a lot to unpack. Welcome back to Friday Farsight, everyone.
Well, Biff, not quite forever, but an indefinite extension, which itself is pretty mind-blowing.
Indefinite extension. To me, that sounds like lawyer language for forever.
Well, what the prediction focuses on, it's about the arrival of individual technologies, which together can, slow down and even reverse aging processes.
Right, so expectations management. We're not just, magically 23 for the rest of our lives, but instead like shuffling from doctor's appointment to doctor's appointment, just just like the elderly people of today.
Maybe with a youthful spring in our step, but yeah, the article's title, Indefinite Life Extension, implies ongoing intervention, not a one-shot immortality pill. Specifically, Strategic Farsight is predicting that by 2078, plus or minus 25 years, scientists will develop comprehensive therapies that can halt and reverse human aging deep down at the level of cells. Think cellular reprogramming, senescent cell elimination, genetic modifications, and regenerative medicine, all converging into a unified therapeutic protocol.
Wow, that's a mouthful. I guess Strategic Farsight, they're not exactly writing a sci-fi movie here where everyone would just be young. They've plotted the tech in some detail. What's your take, Betty? Is this just like wishful thinking, or is there actual science, backing it up?
Oh, Biff, there's absolutely actual science. The foundation for this began with Shinya Yamanaka's Nobel Prize-winning discovery of induced pluripotent stem cells. He used just 4 transcription factors to rewind cells all the way back to the beginning of life, when a cell can still become any part of your body. And recent advances by companies like Altos Labs, who, by the way, are backed by $3 billion in funding, they've shown that partial cellular reprogramming can reverse aging markers in mice. In other words, rewinding just part way without changing a cell's identity, and they can do this without causing tumors. That was a huge safety milestone that earlier attempts, well, they really struggled with.
Tumors, yeah, that doesn't sound so good in an infomercial. Live forever, like that wart on your toe.
Exactly. And it's not just cellular reprogramming. The scientific community has largely coalesced around Lopez Oten and Blasco's 12 hallmarks of aging framework. It's a systematic approach, right, to tackle aging's complexity.
The hallmarks of aging? That's pretty gentle language, don't you think? Like something from a medieval quest. Find the 12 lost hours of the sundial. What about the scourge of time, or simply the 12 faces of death?
Well, the important thing is to break down the problem. Current research, it's showing incredible results addressing individual hallmarks. For instance, senolytics like dasatinib and quercetin, they've shown efficacy in human trials for removing senescent cells. And then you have NAD+ boosters, which...
Wait, slow down, one at a time. Senescent cells, meaning old cells, I guess. We just zero them out? What's left then if, you're already old?
Well, senescent has a specific meaning in biology. Senescent cells, or zombie cells, they've stopped dividing, and yet they don't die. They linger in the body, releasing inflammatory substances that damage nearby cells, and generally speed up aging.
Ouch, got it. I'm sticking with faces of death.
Senolytics extend the health span of tissues by removing these cells. So, back to NAD+ boosters. Their focus, well, they target mitochondrial dysfunction and DNA repair.
Okay, we've got a multi-pronged attack on aging, I see that, but 2078. Why not next Tuesday? Because that's what I want.
It's really about convergence, Biff. The prediction of 2078 reflects the time needed for multiple complex research streams to mature and integrate. David Sinclair's lab at Harvard Medical School, for example, has demonstrated age reversal in mice through epigenetic reprogramming. But translating those findings to humans, that requires extensive safety testing and regulatory approval, typically a 15 to 20-year process, probably more for revolutionary therapies like these.
Wow, 2 decades? All of us inching toward the grave while the FDA, taps pencils to noses, wrinkles brows, while right in front of them is the tech that will let us live forever.
Well, what they want is for it to be safe forever. When it's your body, you don't exactly want to move fast and break things, right?
But that's tech. That's what got us the internet, supercomputers in our pockets, AI.
Well, that was the creed of the software era, but biotechnology, especially longevity medicine, will have its own cadence. Momentum is building, though. It's already reached a critical inflection point, with major tech billionaires investing heavily. Jeff Bezos has committed over $3 billion to Altos Labs, as I mentioned. Google's Calico has similar funding levels. This unprecedented capital injection is really accelerating research timelines that would otherwise extend well into the 22nd century, And then there are the computational advances, AI and drug discovery, biological modeling. DeepMind's AlphaFold protein structure predictions. They're enabling researchers to understand aging's interconnected mechanisms and design comprehensive interventions. It's all just coming together.
Okay, I'm with you on the money and the AI. Those two things can definitely move mountains. And I want to believe this stuff is coming, but there's always a skeptic. I remember reading about Jay Olshansky, who argues that aging's fundamental complexity makes indefinite life extension impossible within this century. Are we just fooling ourselves?
Well, Olshansky's view, it tends to underestimate the exponential progress we're seeing. The successful reversal of aging in multiple animal models, from mice to even primates, demonstrates that aging isn't an immutable biological law, Biff. It's a tractable engineering problem. We've managed to manipulate biological systems in ways we couldn't have imagined just a few decades ago. And as for the FDA's conservative approach, yes, it presents hurdles. But their recent approval of aducanumab for Alzheimer's, despite limited efficacy data, suggests a growing willingness to approve treatments for age-related conditions. By the 2050s, as the first generation of digital natives reaches old age, the political pressure for life extension therapies, it's going to be irresistible.
The youth vote suddenly obsessed with not being old. I can see that. But Betty, is this really going to be tech for the masses? Because everything medical, it's expensive, right? Especially these boutique life extension clinics we have today. People can vote for whatever they want, but if you have to be super rich to afford this, doesn't that leave the rest of us, out of luck?
That's a valid concern, Biff, and one that bioethicists have raised. But the democratizing effect of biotechnology, we've seen it before, right? Look at how genetic sequencing costs dropped from billions to just hundreds of dollars. Strategic Farsight predicts that anti-aging therapies will eventually become widely accessible. The economic incentive, it's too massive for it to remain exclusive for long.
So almost overnight, you're saying? When this stuff arrives, we become a society of immortals.
Well, that's what Phase 3 of the technical pathway describes, Biff. They call it longevity escape velocity, the point where life expectancy increases faster than chronological aging. It's not an instant transformation to a world of 20-somethings. What it means is that death from aging gradually becomes statistically negligible.
Still, that's a complete rethink of how society works, isn't it? Like the career ladder, where you have cadres of young people hustling to get experience, working for peanuts until they're the aging managers soaking in the big salaries on the way to retirement. That whole cycle, does it just freeze up? We can't all work 30 years and then go into retirement for all of eternity. Eventually, the economics, I'm no mathematician, but I don't see currency flows, asset values, and all that lining up nicely so that 95% of us just lounge around all the time.
Well, that's getting a bit beyond what the prediction covers. Maybe you should run your own strategic farsight scenario.
Maybe I will. I bet life extension, it's probably just one of a half dozen radical changes we'll be dealing with by the 2070s.
Undoubtedly. As for life extension specifically, my sense is that there are a number of ways it could shake out. For instance, there's the idea that eternal youth will mean that we all stay active, contributing to the economy, rather than there being an enfeebled class of idlers, the social burden of the elderly. That's David Sinclair's argument in his book Lifespan. Then you have AI and automation, the idea of post-scarcity economics, which could, really drive a complete rethink of the place of work in society.
Wow. Okay, now my head is spinning. So this could be really a completely new world we're making here. What will it fundamentally mean for how people live their lives? Does it mean that all of us, everyone alive today, will live to see the next good Star Wars movie? Maybe I'm being a little snarky, but, we're building all this biotech. Is there a compelling societal reason for it, except each of our selfish desires to keep seeing what's next?
Biff, the end of old age. Think about it. The benefits to society would be huge. By 2050, over 16% of the global population will be over 65, creating unprecedented healthcare costs and social pressure. This demographic tsunami, it's going to drive massive investments in the field.
Right, so at the macro scale, it's a civilizational problem we're solving here. The end of this ever-growing class of elderly who, if you think about it, are the product of the current generation of medical tech, which has extended lifespan dramatically without always delivering, health span as well.
Precisely. And culturally, the generation that grew up with smartphones and social media won't accept aging as inevitable. Their comfort with biological modification, from cosmetic surgery to performance-enhancing supplements, creates fertile ground for more radical interventions.
In other words, this is an idea whose time has come.
Or an idea whose time is coming, at least. Economically, the global anti-aging market, already $58 billion, it will dwarf traditional pharmaceutical markets. The first company to achieve indefinite life extension will capture trillions in value. It's an irresistible economic motivation.
Trillions. Yeah, that would definitely inspire a certain joie de vivre to get this, immortality thing figured out. So why not sooner then? If it's so compelling, so needed, why not like a decade-long moonshot?
Biological complexity is the biggest factor, Biff. Unlike single gene disorders, aging involves thousands of interconnected processes. Even with AI assistance, understanding and manipulating these systems safely just requires decades of research. And regulatory caution, as we discussed, is huge. Phase 3 trials for life extension therapies may require 20 to 30 years to demonstrate both efficacy and safety. Plus, the technical integration of combining cellular reprogramming, gene therapy, senescent cell removal, all into one safe, effective protocol, that's an unprecedented challenge in medicine. It will just take time.
And I guess there's the more pessimistic timeline if it turns out to be even harder than we think.
Absolutely. If technical challenges prove more intractable or unforeseen biological barriers emerge, the timeline could extend to 2120 or beyond. However, strategic Farsight believes the convergence of massive investment, technological advancement, and social pressure makes the 2078 prediction far more likely than those conservative alternatives.
Still, that's a long wait. I guess I'll have to start taking a multivitamin or something.
We might just live to see it, Biff, given ever-improving medicine and the approach of longevity escape velocity. And this achievement of indefinite life extension, it will mark humanity's transition from a species subject to biological constraints to one that has mastered its own biology. It's a transformation as significant as the development of agriculture or written language. Think about that for a moment.
From hunter-gatherers to immortal tech bros. That's quite the journey. What a topic, Betty. As always, you've just, blown my mind with what Strategic Farsight has for us.
Well, Biff, it's why we do Friday Farsight. For all our listeners, you can go to the Strategic Farsight website to read the full prediction article and explore all the amazing timelines and insights yourself. Thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.